Welcome to the National Library of Australia for National Simultaneous Storytime. Here at the library, we acknowledge the first Australians as the traditional owners and custodians of the land that we're on today. We pay our respects to their elders and through them to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I wonder where you're joining us from today. Now, my name's Carly and I work in the education team here at the beautiful National Library, and we love reading. I've got a friend who is ready to read for us. Ben, would you read a story for us, please?
Hello everyone, I would love to. Let's read this year's Simultaneous Storytime book, The Truck Cat, by Deborah Frenkel and Danny Snell. Some cats are house cats. Some are apartment cats. Some cats live on farms. Some live in the city. But Tinker was a truck cat. Tinker lived everywhere. He lived in brick motels with beetles in the bathtub, in rest stop huts with rats in the rafters, in depots dancing with dragonflies. But mostly, home was the cabin of Jakub's B-double triaxle truck. Jakub drove the truck to make a living. He drove it all around the country, learning the strange new landscape on the way. Tinker sat on the passenger seat, keeping an eye out for interlopers. In the truck, there were different things depending on the day. Sometimes apples, sometimes pears, sometimes lots and lots of eggs. Jakub had to drive carefully because otherwise those eggs would all get scrambled. Other humans didn't always understand Jakub. His jokes, his words, his silences. But Tinker knew that when Jakub was quiet, he was busy remembering. And that when Jakub was done, he would switch off the radio and hum tunes from his home country, or tell Tinker about the food his Nina used to make way back. Tinker also had an old home, full of mewing siblings. There was a mama cat way back, and a warm basket. So Tinker and Jakub remembered their memories together. Then, at night, when the truck stopped to rest under the Milky Way, Tinker sat on Jakub's lap and purred into the sky. Can you see the shooting star? But one morning, someone else arrived, a little white flutter asking Tinker to play tag. He did his best. He leapt, he lunged, but butterflies are tricky for even the daintiest of truck cats. Here, there, over, under, here, there, over, under, here, there, over, beep, under. Wheels whooshed and flashed, but Tinker lay still, until cool hands lifted him from the road, held him gently, and carried him to a car. The hands belonged to Mari. At Mari's bakery, there was yogurt, which Tinker didn't like, and a fish head, which he did. So Mari gave him another the next day, and the next. But Tinker worried about Jakub, alone in the truck with just eggs to talk to. He worried about Jakub all summer long. Jakub worried too, from town to town to town and back again. Then, one day, he smelled something familiar. The warm spices of home leading him to a bakery window where someone familiar purred against the glass. Jakub ordered everything on Mari's menu to celebrate. He said it was just like Nina's cooking, maybe even better because it came with company. Lorikeets landed in the lemon tree and pigeons pecked in the petunias, but Jakub and Mari kept talking, in the same language, understanding each other. Tinker waited at the door to be let out. He was not impatient whatsoever. Now, Tinker isn't always a truck cat. Sometimes he's a bakery cat, sometimes a sofa cat, sometimes he's a picnic cat, and sometimes a train cat. But wherever he goes, Tinker is certain of one thing: home is everywhere. And that's the end of the story. So thanks for reading The Truck Cat with us today as part of Simultaneous Storytime. And now we're going to head down to our special collections reading room where Billy and Jess have found some really interesting things in our collection that relate to trucks and cats.
Thank you so much, Ben, for reading that beautiful story. It's one that we both love. So my name is Billy.
And my name is Jess.
And we are here in the Special Collections Reading Room at the National Library to look at some of our collection items to do with trucking and cats and information.
We had to go through 11 million items to find these 3 ones for you. What have we got here, Billy?
So here we have a map of New South Wales from 1884, and it shows some of the different stock routes because Yacoub travelled from town to town to town delivering things like food and produce. However, back in the 1800s, we used things like railways and trucks and, oh my goodness, there's droving.
Is that what these lines over here might be?
I believe so. So when we look at this map and we look at our notes, we can see that all of the truck routes are mainly up and down the coast, but the further inland you get, the more we're relying on railways and also walking our produce by foot.
Wow.
So delivering cows and different animals further inland.
And you said this was a map of New South Wales. I wonder if there's anyone watching from New South Wales that might be able to find their town or city on this map.
True. And I wonder if there's some other state maps that we could find from the same year that would show the same thing as well.
So in the truck cat, Billy, Yacoub travelled around with mostly produce in his truck, didn't he?
He did, but I'm wondering if we can deliver other things via trucks.
Maybe information?
Maybe. What did we find next in our collection?
Oh, well, we found a picture of Canberra's mobile library truck, which probably travelled around with books.
Maybe. I mean, we have over 4 million books in our collections. That's a lot to deliver out to different places.
Maybe just a smaller collection of books then. I wonder if any of you have ever seen a library truck in your town.
I wonder which routes your library truck travels and how you know where it's going to appear next. Talking about interesting photos and thinking about those travelling routes, when we were going through our collection, we noticed that there are a lot of cats that go on many adventures. So here we have a very different photo to the one that you had.
This one looks much smaller than my photo.
It is. So this is actually a glass plate negative from the 1930s. If you look closely, it is actually number 2509 of over 18,000 glass plate negatives in our Fairfax collection here at the National Library.
That is a lot of photos.
It really is. So glass plates are very fragile and we do have to protect them. So we have a very special team here that preserve and look after our items and also make them available for people at home to find online on Trove.
Does that mean, Billy, that people who are watching National Simultaneous Storytime online can go and find this one themselves?
They can, and in fact, we actually have a copy we can show you now. As you look very closely at this photo, you can see that there is a couple on a boat in Sydney Harbour, but they've also brought along their dog and a very grumpy looking cat. I wonder what that cat's name was.
Yeah. I wonder if this cat was anything like Tinker in our story, The Truck Cat, and if it may have gone on any adventures like Tinker did. If you were writing your own story like The Truck Cat, what would you write about and what would you name your cat?
Thank you so much for joining us and reading The Truck Cat today and having a chance to look at some of these amazing objects in our collection.
Thank you, Billy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.